It's just 2 weeks away until the transfer window officially opens on June the 14th. Already the speculation is rife with who Newcastle United are going to bring in. It's going to be a really interesting summer window in preparation for this exciting season in the Champions League competition coming up. So you have a lot of Newcastle fans who are utterly convinced we're going to be bringing in 6 or 7 players into the squad and spending about £250 million. You have the owners, and Eddie Howe in particular, when he's been interviewed very recently, have a much more reserved estimation of what's been going on or what's going to happen in this summer transfer window. Eddie Howe talks about wanting to utilise his current squad as much as possible, only bringing in probably 2 or 3 players, the budget not being as high as he would like it to be, but that will have to play within the limitations of financial fair play. So complete contradictions of what's going on. In this video, I'm going to look at why Eddie Howe thinks that we might only be bringing in 2 or 3 players, and did he really mean that? It's coming up. Welcome back, it's Eddie here from Tyneside Life, and can you guess where I am today? I'll take a little scan around so you get a better look. That's right, I'm at the seaside. So this morning Helen left me a big list of jobs to do around the house, and then she went out and I thought, sod that, I'm going to the seaside with my dogs Lily and Setu. I'm going to make a little video, going for a nice walk and have some fish and chips. But didn't tell her where I am, right, because she'll knock us all over. Quickly before I get into it, oh, that's Mincella's behind me. It is, in my opinion, one of the best cream and jam scones I've ever tasted. Lovely. So yeah, every day now I've been putting a little quiz up on the community page of my YouTube homepage. The community tab. Tap on it. There's a question every day. It might be about Newcastle United, it might be about local history, and less than half of you are getting the answers right so far. So why don't you have a look? Try and answer the question, see if you can do better than this lot who have already been on. Of course, you will recognise this beach at South Shields. This is Sandhaven Beach. And if you didn't know, because I did a video about this last year in 2022, according to the Sunday Times travel guide, the writer who goes around the UK's beaches every year and puts together the list of the UK's best beaches. I can't remember his name, but Sandhaven Beach here behind me was named as Britain's best beach. Don't be offended by that, we all have our favourite beaches. It's a bit like food. When they look at the Britain's best beaches, they don't just look at the beach, which here at Sandhaven is absolutely stunning. You have an army of litter pickers out every day making sure it's clean, but they look at the environment, the ecology, the conservation, the marine habitats out there, the protection of all these marine species, but also the facilities that they provide in various beaches. And last year Sandhaven was Britain's best beach. If you haven't been here, get yourself down, man. It's absolutely a jewel in the northeast crown, and we have some great beaches here on the northeast coastline. Of course, we've got Tynemouth about a mile over there, but also up in Northumberland, some stunning beaches. We should take advantage of them, especially with all the beautiful weather we get here in the northeast. Another piece of important news, just a day or two ago, Eddie Howe just missed out on being voted the Premier League manager of the season to Pep Guardiola. Let's get this out front and centre. Eddie Howe absolutely 100% deserved to be the Premier League manager of the season, and that takes nothing away, in my opinion, from Pep Guardiola, who is clearly one of the top 3 coaches in the world, and arguably, certainly in my opinion, probably the best coach there is in the world at the moment. What he's done with Man City this season is absolutely brilliant. They've already secured the Premier League title, but also as well they're in the FA Cup final and the Champions League final. It's amazing. But put it into context of where Man City are as a club right now. If you had said at the beginning of the season, could Man City possibly get the treble? You wouldn't be saying, don't be ridiculous, impossible. You'd probably say something like, well, you know what, they might. I mean, they're good enough. The context is, look at Newcastle United. At the beginning of this season, would you have said, would Newcastle United finish 4th and qualify for the Champions League? Everybody in their right mind would have said, don't be ridiculous. So in that context, that's why Eddie Howe should have been nominated as the Premier League manager of the season, because of where Newcastle United were, relegation fodder last year to Champions League. qualifiers this season, so he's missed out. So why was Eddie Howe overlooked? This is where I see the world through a completely different lens to most. I'm autistic. I see things completely differently. I'll tell you why, in my opinion, that he didn't get it, is because when Eddie Howe a few months ago in an interview he said that we don't want to be fans' second favourite team, where he had to win. What he didn't mean was that he wanted our club to take a pride in being disliked, to actively encourage a narrative that we're the most hated club in England and going around fueling that narrative. That's why Eddie Howe wasn't voted. When other fans are involved in this particular vote, that's why Eddie Howe was overlooked. And if we want to paint that picture of Newcastle United, fine, but when the Smarties are being dished out at the end of the season and Eddie Howe has missed out, stop your whinging, get a grip. We know that Eddie Howe is last season's best manager in the Premier League. So down to the business end of the video and what Eddie Howe plans for this summer when he says 2 or 3 players. Of course, there's been quite a few players linked with Newcastle United in recent weeks. You have Dominic Szoboszlai, James Maddison, James Ward-Prowse, Harvey Barnes, Scott McTominay, Kieran Tierney, amongst others, and clearly 8 or so into 3 doesn't go. So where are these players, or some of them, going to go? Because it is quite complex when you look at the squad. So let's have a look at Newcastle United's current squad and where the complications might be. So we're looking at a list of players. We have 30 at the moment with squad numbers. You'll see that 3 of them are under 21, 3 have CT next to them, which are club trained. Now, the Premier League require clubs to submit a 25-man squad when the transfer window closes, not to be confused with UEFA requirements, which is a little bit different because they have 2 lists, List A and List B, and out of the 8 homegrown or locally trained players that are required for the Premier League, those 8 homegrown players are split into 2 batches, a minimum of 4, which are association trained. That's any player that's been trained in the FA system for at least 3 consecutive years, aged between 15 and 21, and a minimum of 4 club trained players of the same criteria, but who have been on the home club's books at Newcastle for a minimum of 3 years between age 15 and 21. So we have 3 players at the moment club trained. That's Paul Dummett, Elliot Anderson and Sean Longstaff. So the 3 under 21 players don't count as part of 25-man squads. They're over and above. They're freebies, if you like, so we can take that 30 name list down to 27 straight away. And I have 3 crosses next to players which in all likelihood are not likely to be in the squad coming up for one reason or another. Matty Longstaff, bless him, arterial cruciate ligament damage injury, which he's having rehabilitation for, so he's not going to be part of the squad that's named at the end of August. Clearly, we have Ryan Fraser, massively out of favour. He's going to be gone one way or another. And Loris Karius, the keeper, he's going to be gone. So that list of 30 has went down to 27, now down to 24. So we have a vacancy in the 25-man squad for the purposes of the Premier League. But where are these other players going to go? So let's take a look at the squad. I've got 5 question marks next to players which include, let's look at the goalkeepers, Martin Dubravka. It's uncertain about his future. He may want to move on. Clearly he wants some sort of guarantee of first team football. He's probably not going to get that with Newcastle, so he might slap a transfer request in. If he leaves, we're going to have to replace him with another top class goalkeeper. Out of the other 4 question marks, 3 of them are defenders. We have Jamal Lewis. Now if you look at the left back position, we have Matt Targett, Dan Burn, Paul Dummett and Jamal Lewis. Now clearly we're not going to be getting rid of Paul Dummett. He needs to be in the squad, not least for the purposes of the UEFA lists, because he's a club trained player. Otherwise we'll lose that squad place. So it's Jamal Lewis. Now there's 2 years left on Jamal Lewis's contract. Is Eddie Howe wanting to move him on? I don't think so. I mean, he played him on as a sub against Chelsea. I think Eddie Howe has plans for Jamal Lewis. Having said that, if another club comes in and wants to buy Jamal Lewis and puts a 15-20 million pound bid in, I don't know, he could be off. That would leave a slot for a player like Kieran Tierney. If he doesn't move on, that's the end of that, I think. Then you have Jamal Lascelles and Javier Manquillo, both aged 29, I think, both with 1 year left on their extensions. I think Eddie Howe would be loath to want to move them on unless another club wanted to come in and buy them, because that would release more funds for the transfer window. But as it stands, if we want a right-footed defender, we're going to have to move on one of those players, and that's going to be tricky. And then you have Matt Ritchie, which is the other question mark. He's coming to the end of his contract at the end of this month, but Eddie Howe, I think, is keen to get him an extension to his contract. He wants him around the club, clearly, because of his expertise, his professionalism, but also his leadership skills. He's just great to have around. That all depends on Matt Ritchie, I think. He's 33, I think. He might want to even drop down a division to get some first team football, I don't know. But Matt Ritchie isn't straightforward. So all these other players that we've talked about, the Shabalsais, the Moussa Diabis, the James Madisons, the Harvey Barnes, all of them, you know, where are they all going to go? Because if you look at all the other players, unless another club, for example, a European club comes in for Maxi with a £40 million bid and he wants to leave, Eddie Howe wants to keep all these players, the Jacob Murphys, the Longstaffs, the Miggies, the Joe Lintons. Bruno clearly isn't going to go anywhere. So you can start to get a feel, I think, for the complications and the difficulties of where we would find, even if Eddie Howe wanted to buy 5 or 6 players, where they would go, because the shop's full. Of course, there's hot speculation at the minute over a player that most of us had never heard of 48 hours ago. That's Gabri Veiga, who plays for Celta Vigo. It's a bit of a tongue twister. I think I've got that right. A hot Spanish prospect. I don't think he's a full Spanish international. I think it's under 21s, but he's just turned 21. So if we signed a player like him, he wouldn't be part of the 25-man squad. He'd be one of those freebies that we could add on. It would be great if we could get a hold of a player like, in my view, Dominic Shabalsai, one of those elite player signings. And if we did, I think that would probably be bait for the midfield position, and he'd probably go for a defensive position in addition to that, if we could free up a slot. But clearly there's a lot of variables to this. We're going to have to shuffle around, move players on in order to bring new players in. So I think fans who will think we're going to bring 6 or 7 players in, I think you're out of your mind, if I'm perfectly honest. You know, not least as well because Eddie Howe doesn't want to make sweeping wholesale changes to a squad and potentially upset the dressing room. He's only going to want to bring in, I think, 2 or 3 players, you know, just ease them in, and perhaps next summer, when some contracts have come to an end, then we might be in a better position, A, financially, and B, because we can reduce the size of the squad, we might be in a position to bring more players in. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below of where you think this is going to go. Clearly, it's going to be really exciting to see who we bring in. And yeah, till next time. Catch you later.